12:16 on a Tuesday. Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare, Tyler Head out today. He'll be back tomorrow. And we will follow up with him and see how things have gone. I didn't get to talk to him much yesterday. Obviously, I was at the doctor all day at Prisma doing one of those fun stress tests, and also doing a CT scan and trying to get myself ready for 2026 and hopefully get some things solved and fixed. So I didn't get a chance to discuss with him much. And today he's out. Voice is shot, which is important when you do radio of any kind. So hopefully we'll get Tyler back and healthy tomorrow. And again, we'll get the whole family together, myself, Captain Dave, and Tyler, same place, same time, each and every day as we get 2026 off to a start. Hopefully you have had a good Christmas. I hope you had a phenomenal Christmas. Hope you had a phenomenal New Year's. And you didn't enter the transfer portal. You're still here listening. That's all we ask of you, that you're still right here listening. South Carolina, on the other hand, interesting few weeks there as we were off, losing a couple different players. Some news and notes today. Number one, let's start with three guys that I find intriguing to see where they end up, and that would be the three offensive linemen. Now, Twitter. I've been active on Twitter. I've got other things out there, and with that being said, I think the three offensive linemen, Babalade, Ball, and Josiah Thompson, are losses. And I get it. You can say, Bill, those guys stunk. The whole offensive line stunk. The whole unit. No good. Ugh, bad. I still would rather have players. Now, I will tell you, I have a different view of it probably than a lot of you, having done recruiting, having gone through it. And so when I see 4 and 5 stars like Ball, Babalade, and Thompson, I know they have potential. The recruiting nerds and the recruiting geeks, myself included when I did it, they don't miss that often. They do miss. There are misses. But you have a hard time convincing me that those three players were all busts and bombs. Now, I put more of it on Lonnie Teasley, and I'll put some of it on the strength and conditioning program, and I'll put some of it on the offensive scheme, and it'll all go together. I do put some of it on the players. They deserve some fault. I would have loved to see Randy Clements work with those three. And whether they were told to leave, whether they asked for too much money, I don't know. I'm not an insider anymore. I don't try to be. But you don't lose three guys like that and be like, oh, yeah, we're better. We're good. You don't know what they're about to bring in the transfer portal on the offensive line. Not only do you not know if you're about to bring something in that's better, supposedly, why are said offensive linemen transferring? Do they need to bring in new guys? Yes. They've got to upgrade the talent. You've got to get some different guys, and I'm not arguing that. What I am going to say is I would have preferred, with Babalade, Ball, and Thompson, to have those guys on the roster. I'm not saying that I think they should have started, but I would have preferred to see Randy Clements get to work with those guys who I think are talented players, who have been, I'm going to use the word mistreated, but have not been coached. So you lose those three guys, and today, no surprise, Tree Babalade announces his commitment to Nebraska, so he follows Lonnie Teasley. And yeah, all right, Tree, big Tree, good deal. You're going to go follow Lonnie Teasley. You're going to continue to get bad coaching. You're going to continue to not develop, and we'll never hear from you again. That's for the best. Whatever. Maybe that's the style of coaching he wants. I don't know. And if that's the case, all right, it is what it is. Go on about your business. Go on. Go keep stinking. Gone. Get out of here. Cool. I still would have rathered him be here. Trevon Ball's going to Texas A&M, a current playoff team, a team who's improved their offensive line. And I like Trevon Ball. I didn't think he played good this year. I didn't think he and any of them played good. But I would have rather have had him here. And we'll see what they bring in again in the transfer portal. But Trevon Ball going to Texas A&M, and then we'll see what Josiah Thompson ends up with. And those are three big ones. I mean, you can't just you build talent on the offensive line, and when you get talent, you have to coach them. You have to coach them. And you go back and watch the film, and you go back, and some of it's not even coaching. Some of it's just they flat let guys last year run by them. And I don't know if that's scheme. I don't know what that is, because this is middle school type stuff where they weren't picking up blocks. And I refuse to believe that's pure talent, because talent, at least knows to get in the way of something if you play the offensive line. So I would have preferred to have those three on this roster. Would I have preferred to have them as a starter? I don't know. Figure it out. Get 15 guys in here and let them all sort it out. Let Randy Clement sort it out with the 5 he wants the best. You know, Shed Surratt's still here. Now, you have lost, it is interesting, you have lost Boaz Stanley and Case and Henry. So you've lost 5 offensive linemen. Nick Sharp, 2, 6, if you're being, if you're just doing the numbers. So you are rebuilding and redoing the offensive line. But I'll be honest about this. On that offensive line, you all know, because I see the text and the tweets and everything, you all know the importance of next year. And by blowing up the offensive line, which is what has happened, I feel like you're kind of saying, all right, we're going to give you a little bit of a 1-year honeymoon period to get your guys in here and to figure it out. And I don't see it that way. That offensive line has got to be ready to go. They've got to be ready to roll in quarter number 9 against Mississippi State. You get Towson, you get Kent State, and then Towson in the first 8 quarters to make sure everything's good and gelled. And then that offensive line has got to be middle of the pack SEC no later than September 19th. And I think that's a tall task. I think that's a tall task to say, all right, take 5, 6 new dudes and go in there and figure it out. 15 spring practices. By the way, my prediction right now on January 6th, no spring game. I could be wrong on that. Shane, don't get upset at me. Don't yell at me on Twitter or in press conferences. But it makes sense, by the way, which I'm okay with, the stadium under renovations for them not to have a spring game. So that gives them actually an extra practice instead of a game to continue to develop and get better, that worthless spring game. But, you know, let Shane, let Randy Clements, let him work on it. 15 practices there, and then you're going to get roughly 25 to 28 in the fall. So you're talking 43 practices max to get everything straight on that offensive line. And that offensive line, you all will agree, needs to be straight next year. It needs to be good. So I don't view this as a rebuild. This cannot be a rebuild. We can't be halfway into the season going, I think they're starting to gel. I think they're getting better. They got to be good, and they got to be ready to go at Mississippi State. And I don't know if that's 5 new transfers. I don't know if that's Jatavius Shivers and Shed Surratt and Ryan Brubaker and Marquis Anderson and some transfer. I don't know what combination it is, and that's not my job to figure it out. It's my job to sit here and talk about it with you and us try to figure it out. But that offensive line, and so that's why I just say 3 dudes there who I think are talented. And I think would have benefited from working with an actual college offensive line coach. We'll see what happens with that. Now, South Carolina also loses a wide receiver, Vandrevius Jacobs. Not a guy that I wanted to lose. Now, there's caveats now with the transfer portal, right? Shane Beamer and his staff have to weigh what Vandrevius Jacobs is asking for. Like, I think he comes in and he's like, I need coach. I need $1.2 million. Shane's got to look at the budget here, and Shane's got to look at his other options and go, I'm sorry, you don't fit our budget. And that very well, judging that Vandrevius Jacobs has already made a visit to Miami, and we know Miami has no problem throwing around the money, and Jacobs is a good wide receiver. Again, I'd love to see him with a competent offensive coaching staff, with a scheme that actually knows what it's doing and isn't just pulling plays out of the bag as the game goes along. I'd like to see him, no offense to Lenore Sellers right now, but with a competent quarterback who is running a scheme that is highlighting their strength. I think Jacobs and Harbor would have been a very good 1-2 punch. It's a loss. But it's not a loss if he came in and said, Coach, I need 1.2 or 1.5 or this is my number. And Shane Beamer went, you aren't worth that. You're worth $700,000. You're worth $800,000. And that sucks because welcome to college football in 2026. It's not the way it was, but it's the way it is now. Now you got to adjust and you got to adapt. And Vandrevius Jacobs, so in that manner, you lose a talented player, it's a loss. In the manner that we're talking now budgeting and paying guys, I don't think it's a loss. Contradiction of myself there. But that's what you've got. You've got to figure out, all right, is this dude worth that amount of money? Is this guy worth that amount of money? And how do I make it all fit? And so Vandrevius Jacobs is a loss. But at the same time, again, financially, if he's coming in demanding a lot of money, and plus, look, he's from the state of Florida, Going to Miami, I get it. All those kids dream of playing at Miami or Florida State, and Jacobs has now realized 2 out of those 3 with playing at Florida State and Miami. Kudos to him. But that's a loss. And so you got guys to step up. Jaden Sellers, time to step up. Mazio Bennett, I don't know where you went this year. Time to step back up. Malik Clark, now's your time to shine. I saw he put out a tweet that put prayer hands up in year 2. And he was a highly thought of wide receiver. So options are there. Options are there at wide receiver. And then yesterday they land Jaden Gibson. I think actually it was Sunday night is when he officially committed. A 6'5", 200-pound wide receiver transfer from Oklahoma who had moments but has been injured, has had knee injuries, and we'll see how he develops and what he becomes. But I think wide receiver is still okay. I just would have preferred Vandravius Jacobs be on this team with this coaching staff, with this coaching scheme, with a quarterback who I believe is going to be taught to improve going into 2026, and the same exact thing for the offensive linemen. I would have preferred them to be here over having to go out and find new dudes and bring them in and fight and scrap and claw and figure everything out from there. So that's a lot of the news. Now today, similar situation. South Carolina loses a defensive end. And this is a guy that I was really excited to see. Was a big portal pickup last year, and that's Jalen Brown, defensive end. But he got injured in the spring, and we never saw him play. And he never got to tag team up with Dylan Stewart. And, yes, it's a loss. It is a loss. A talented player is a loss. But we never saw him. We didn't know what we had. And who knows, and I hate to say it, with these knee injuries and things of that occur, it's hard, how well would he come back? But he is a talented player, and you need talented players on your roster in this league. And even if he never helps and provides anything, I would like to think he provides competition at that defensive end position, which South Carolina needs, with Desmond Umizulu, with Julian Walker coming in, with other players that they've got there at defensive end. And I can tell you this, at least in the conversation that I had, they were very interested to see what Jalen Brown was going to do. He was going to be limited in the spring, but they were interested to see what he could do. This is, again, a guy that you don't want to lose. Now, I'll come back to the news, the information we don't have. Did he walk into Shane Beamer's office or Clayton White's office and be like, Coach, need me about $1 million. Need me about 1.5. And they looked around. They said, no, you're not worth it. Go out and perform. Go out and perform and show us what you can do. And then if you show us what you can do, we'll pay you then. And that's the way it should be, right? So we don't know why all these transfers actually occur. I've seen the rumors. I'm like y'all. I read the message boards and everything. Well, the offensive lineman went in and asked for a lot of money and got upset that Darius Gray was being paid what he's being paid. Okay, well, were they worth the money? And that is what you have to weigh with these transfer portal moves now. It's easy to say, man, there's no loyalty to the team. There's nothing of that, and that's very well true. But for Shane Beamer, for his staff, for Darren Usher, for everybody over there, you got to look around and go, all right, was this financially worth it, or can we go find a capable replacement for $200,000 less? And it's stupid, and I hate it, and it's not the way college football should be. But that's the way it is. So the Gamecocks lose today. Jalen Brown, a defensive end who, again, never played, don't know what we had, but was a big-time recruit, was a big-time transfer portal pickup last year, and now he's back into the portal. Be school number 3 for him in 3 years. 803-404-6100. I'll get to some text messages, and I'll get back to some basketball when we come back. You're listening to the Halftime Show. It is 12:35 on a Tuesday. Again, coming up here in about 40 minutes, we'll catch up with John Whittle. We'll talk more college basketball, specifically South Carolina. I'll share some more thoughts on that coming up in just a minute. We'll catch up with J.C. Shurburtt at 2:15 today for about 30 minutes, and we will talk about the transfer portal and where South Carolina is now as we officially get into 2026 and move toward. By the way, remember, there's actually another signing day that takes place. Nobody knows. Nobody cares anymore. Like the original signing day that we used to all celebrate the first Wednesday in February, that guys, it was their man's Christmas where you would take the day off. Nobody gives a bleep anymore about that day, and that's sad. Like nostalgia kicking in there on all the things that I used to do 10, 12, 15 years ago on National Signing Day, the first Wednesday in February, and now it's just a meaningless another day in February. But we got that, and then we'll have spring practice for the Gamecocks. And again, I don't foresee a spring game, not because Shane Beamer doesn't want to. I think he loves doing them, but because of the fact that they're doing the renovations at Williams-Brice Stadium. And I don't think you can get 30,000 to wear hard hats during the game, which I believe is a stipulation of being around the stadium right now. So it would surprise me. And I feel like it's just a matter of when, not if, we hear them call off the spring game. We'll monitor that because certainly I think with Kendall Briles' system, how much are we going to really learn? Maybe not much, but I think you would like to go see it. I think you would like to see it with your own eyes. And then also just see a few things. You know, it's always fun to see a Landon Duckworth and, oh, okay, this is what our future quarterback looks like. Oh, okay, I want to see that, you know, and maybe see a Jazavion Currents at safety and be like, oh, okay, I like that. That's a good pickup. It looks real good. And as I mentioned with Kendall Briles' offense, maybe that's something you want to see. But I will be surprised if we get a spring game this year due to the renovations over at Williams-Brice Stadium and the construction going on. We'll see. We'll see. 803-404-6100. Chris weighs in the house, says, how about a spring game versus Coastal Carolina? When they start allowing that to happen, I think that would be great. I'm all for it. And I wish it would happen sooner rather than later. I would love to see like a spring game. Now, I think coaches, it would be interesting to see a spring game, how coaches would want to handle that. And here's why. Let's say you're Ohio State. Let's say you're Ryan Day, who's, I would say, already on the hot seat. Okay? I would say that seat scorching hot again after 1 year after winning the national championship. Do you want to have a spring game, and I'm just going to throw a team out there, against like Toledo, where if you lose, hypothetically lose, I mean, let's be honest, Ohio State, they're dealing with the portal. Players are here, there, everywhere. You don't know. Toledo's going to show up fired up. Your guys are going to be kind of like, oh, I don't want to get hurt. I mean, if you got guys opting out of bowl games, you're probably going to have guys opting out of spring games. So if you're Ryan Day and you're Ohio State, do you want to run the risk of losing to Toledo in an absolutely meaningless game? Even if you play your fifth stringers all game and that score pops up Toledo 17, Ohio State 14, and it runs across the bottom line ticker for 48 hours, that's not the publicity you want. So what I would be interested to see is would schools like Ohio State or a Shane Beamer at South Carolina, a Davos Sweeney at Clemson be like, we're going to schedule up a little bit. You know, maybe South Carolina, instead of playing a Coastal, says we're going to play a Georgia Tech, which would be cool for the fans. We're going to play a game where that way if we lose, all right, we lost to a decent team. There's nobody's yelling at us. Nobody's calling for our head because we lost a spring game. You know, you go out, let's be honest, you go out and you lose a spring game to Coastal Carolina, and the majority of the time Coastal Carolina is going to take it a lot more seriously and be really fired up than South Carolina is. And again, you got so much roster transition, and you don't want to really play Lenore Sellers all that much because if he gets hurt, I don't know if that's a risk that coaches want to run for their job security when job security is already becoming more and more fragile each and every day in the college football world where, $54 million, pull it out of the bank, we'll pay it, and we'll get rid of this coach. We'll fire him today. So I would be interested to see, Chris, how that would work if you'd see more coaches being like, all right, you know, if you're South Carolina, you're like, well, we don't play Georgia Tech for several years. Put them on our spring game schedule, or, you know, we don't play Florida State, or we don't play, you know, North Carolina State or whatever. Let's play them in a spring game. We'll do a home and home this year here, next year there, and that'll be our spring game rotation. So we'll kind of see if that works out, but we'll see what happens for the spring game for South Carolina, and something certainly to be able to keep an eye on. Rod weighs in and says, move it to the Greenville Shrine Stadium, 10,000 tickets, sell them and sell it out. I think they did that back in the 80s. I think they went to Florence maybe and played. Somebody more alert from the 80s than me could tell me that for sure. But we'll find out. We'll find out, and something we'll continue to watch. 803-404-6100. Chaz weighs in as we were talking about offensive line and says they need another strength and conditioning coach. So we'll see. When they win, when your team's winning, your strength and conditioning coach is the bee's knees. Absolute tops. Didn't complain about the strength and conditioning coach during 9-4. After this year, we're all looking at Luke Day like, all right, buddy, you got to step up a little more. So we'll see. I can't really be a great judge of that. That's not something. That's a Perry Orth, Pat DeMarco, guys who have been in the weight room, been around the program, who are familiar with how those things go. And we'll see if we can get maybe Pat on in the coming weeks to discuss that. 803-404-6100. Let's go. Another text says, if the spring game is not going to be to demo and show your starters and your players that are expected for the season, what's the point of a glorified practice? And that's what we're getting to now with these spring games. They're losing a little more and more luster each and every year. You got to find ways to be creative and I think make them exciting. I've said, you could honestly have a fan day event at Williams-Brice Stadium. I don't know what the rules and regulations are that go into an actual spring game. Like, if you did something with the fans, but there were no pads involved, is that okay? If a football is involved, are we now officially having a practice? I think once a football is actually thrown by the players, a practice is considered engaged. But make it a fan day, or do something out in the Gamecock Park out there, and have games and stuff, and you meet the players, meet and greet the players and the coaches. Have a band, have all these kind of things. That would be really, really cool. And actually could do it before a baseball game and kind of make it an all-day Gamecock event, kind of like they were working to do it. I think the administration was a little bit on top of that.
Spurrier used to do that, remember, back in the day?
They were heading toward that. And I think Shane Beamer's done a good job of that, to be honest with you. I think Shane's done a good job of trying to promote the family and the team and everything at the spring game, because I don't get the impression that Shane loves spring games, but he understands the value of them from a recruiting standpoint and also, just fan involvement and engagement.
Yeah.
And,
by the way, Descartes told us that that Florence game back in the 80s, they played each other, and Kevin White was the quarterback.
All right. There you go. So I was right. They played a game down in Florence, and, a spring game took place. And I want to say I knew that because my father took me, and I want to say that was one of those things after the game they had a cookout. This was, again, we're talking 40 years ago. But they had a cookout, and the winning team got steaks, and the losing team got hot dogs, which was something they used to do.
Oh, that's great.
So, and it mattered more back then. Kids back then, getting a steak dinner mattered something, Dave. Now you're just like, well, I'm going to take my NIL money and go down here to Halls. Bleep your spring game. I don't need a hot dog anyway. I got money to go to Halls. Doesn't work like that anymore, does it?
Nope.
Yeah, 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour with some basketball. I want to get back to some of these text messages from early on when I started discussing basketball and give a few thoughts there. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. It is the Halftime Show. reminder, you can hear us all over. We are worldwide, baby. Just go to 1075 The Game app streaming, or you can actually catch us streaming on YouTube. The Game TV radio, powered by Integrated Media and sponsored by Shepherd's Glass. We are all over your dial. That's right. All you got to do is download the 1075 The Game app. You can take us anywhere. Germany, South Africa, Japan, Swansea, whatever. We are everywhere, and you can listen to us via that mode. Again, just go to your app store, download the 1075 The Game app, and start listening wherever you are at. You can be at a roulette table in Vegas. Be listening to us and annoying your other gamblers. So make sure you go and do that. Again, that's the 1075 The Game app. Or, as always, each and every day at your office, you can log on to YouTube and stream us, the Game TV radio, powered by Integrated Media and sponsored by Shepherd's Glass. Tonight, South Carolina basketball. Took some work to have that much energy to say South Carolina basketball. Look, I love basketball. I love South Carolina basketball. I have great memories of going to Frank McGuire Arena to catch Eddie Fogler's teams. Yes, even Dave Odom's teams. Steve Newton a little bit before my time. George Felton definitely before my time. Although I do remember some games from that era. But I love it. And South Carolina basketball is what it is. It is a destitute program. How in the world do we get this thing to be constantly competitive? And I say that, I mean, you look at this program since the 70s, 5 NCAA tournament appearances in just about 50 years. You had one in the 80s where they lost to North Carolina State, the 2 in the 90s where you lost to Coppin State and Richmond. You had the loss to Memphis in the 2000s, and then obviously Frank Martin getting the team all the way to the Final Four, in which, by the way, I will consider to be the greatest South Carolina achievement of all time, regardless of sport, because I feel like there will be a day that I will see South Carolina baseball in my lifetime, hopefully it's long, that I will see South Carolina baseball win another national championship. South Carolina is a legitimate blue blood in college baseball, and you can't keep a good team down forever. And I think South Carolina will be back. There will be a day and age, I don't know when, that we will get to see South Carolina win another national championship in baseball. I think, obviously, I'll see a day and age where I see another women's basketball championship, maybe this year. Those are, I think, the two that we put at the forefront, the baseball championships and the women's basketball championship, because, as the key word said there, is championships. I don't think I will ever see South Carolina reach another Final Four. And that's why I proclaim it to be the greatest South Carolina sports achievement of all time, because I don't think I'll ever see it again. I don't think you'll ever see it again. And that's a shame to have that feeling, but it took 39 years, I'm 43, so it took about 37 years for me to see South Carolina, 35 years, to see South Carolina win a singular NCAA tournament game. There's a lot of you my age. We grew up, I remember having this conversation with a particular coach at South Carolina, and it was about recruiting players. And one of the conversations that was had was, well, at least football can walk in to a recruit's, even with the history of South Carolina, walk in and be like, remember when this happened that was really good? You know, remember when Joe Morrison, maybe the parent, not the player, but the parent would be like, oh, okay, I do remember 84, y'all went 10-2. Yeah, okay. So, and that football coach would be able to say, look, see, so there's been success at South Carolina football. Maybe now you can walk in, you point to Lou Holtz and go, you remember they won, and now obviously you can say that with Steve Spurrier. There was the longest time where parents of the recruit, a coach at the University of South Carolina's basketball team, couldn't walk in and say, hey, you remember when we were successful this year? And that speaks to what South Carolina basketball has been. And now you say, all right, Lamont Paris, you gotta get this fixed. And he's tried. And it's year 4. And I don't know where they're going to head up tonight. 7 o'clock against LSU. We'll have the coverage for you right here on starting at 6:30 with the pregame show with Casey and Derek. And, you know, this team right now I think is fighting like crazy, not just for the season, but maybe for the program, because I was at the game on Saturday against Vanderbilt, and the apathy amongst the fan base is probably as close to as bad as I've ever seen. People will just flat give it up. I mean, not everybody. You might be listening right now, Bill. I hadn't given up. Okay, I'm not saying everybody. It's not completely all of you, but there's a lot of people that are looking at this program like, man, y'all are bad. And Lamont Paris, the first time I've seen him kind of start to crack a little bit was on Saturday after the game. He was asked about not pressing until late in the game, and first time I've seen Lamont kind of come back a little bit and be like, well, we have a lot of head coaches in this press conference room, in this press room. And it was the first time I've seen Lamont be a little snarky, almost like the pressure and the realization of what's going on is getting to him. And this team was built, and I love this about Lamont Paris right now, he is sticking to his guns. This team was built to shoot the three ball. And they're going to go down with the Titanic, or they're going to rise back up by shooting the three ball. But they were 7 of 28 on Saturday, and that included 0 for 8 to start, 5 for their next 5, and then 0 for their next 8. You go to LSU tonight, and you get Georgia on Saturday, and they're going to be underdogs in both. They're underdogs in both. And then you get Arkansas next Wednesday. That game is in Fayetteville. And then you go to Auburn. I don't think the SEC is as good as it was last year. I think Auburn's kind of a mess with Stephen Pearl, and that program's heading downhill. But South Carolina cannot afford to go 0-5 to start the season in SEC play because the fan base will not just – they're not angry. You guys aren't angry anymore. You're not even close to angry. You're just like, whatever. That's who they are. And that's bad, man. That's not good. We'll talk more basketball coming up in the next hour. John Whittle will join us, and we'll get his thoughts on it. He's offered some rankings with the Ken Palm about South Carolina and what it means right now. We'll discuss all of that. J.C. Shurburtt set up for 2:15 this afternoon to get back into transfer portal talk, and we'll get into some college football playoff discussion in the next hour. It's the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. You know Mid-State Roofing. They've been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for 30-plus years. 30 years. That's a long, long time, buddy. And you got to be doing something really, really well to stay in business and to be the industry leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for that long. And with Mid-State Roofing, it's actually pretty simple. It's customer service. They want to make sure your operation's staying dry and running long into the future. That's what makes them stand out. It all starts by being there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You heard that right. Leaks, they don't have a watch. They don't know what time that they're supposed to occur and not supposed to occur. So if it happens at 1 a.m., you need professionals there that are going to help you, and that is precisely who Mid-State Roofing is. You heard that right. You can call Mid-State Roofing at 1 a.m. in the morning, 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. It is 1 o'clock on a Tuesday as I roll through here. Tyler Head will be back hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow. His voice a little shot right now. And for those of you wondering, to be able to do sports talk radio or any kind of radio, you preferably need your voice. So Tyler not being able to talk, a little bit of a detriment. So we gave him the day off, and it's Captain Dave and I. Coming up in about 15 minutes, John Whittle will join us. We'll get back into that basketball discussion. I'm frustrated. I think that Colonial Life Arena, I'm not a fan of the arena. I wish they'd bulldoze that thing down and build less seats, 12,000 seats, make the amenities great, fantastic suites, a good student section. I wish they'd bulldoze that thing. It's so cookie cutter. It's so generic. There's no nuance to it. I don't even think it's great for concerts, to be honest. I've sat everywhere in that place, and I'm not a huge fan of the acoustics in there for concerts. But around the arena, it could be so much fun and could lead to such fun game days. Yes, I know, Gunner. Stop worrying about what game days are actually like and worry about the product on the court. But you've got so many little establishments up there and you can go to and get lunch and dinner or whatever, cocktails with your buddies, then walk down. And I think when South Carolina's winning, that place is rocking. And it is fun. I'd love to see it in a different arena there, but that place is fun. And I went to Albany, and Austin and my son went to the Vanderbilt game, and I had fun. I had a good time. But they didn't win. Well, they won the Albany game. They didn't win the Vanderbilt game. And, this Saturday it'll be 2 o'clock. And, look, I don't expect a huge crowd. And I expect these crowds to dwindle more and more and more. And that's not good when you're at the beginning of January. And Lamont Paris, we all agree. I've yet to see one person say a negative word about the human being that is Lamont Paris. But they're becoming more and more negative words about Lamont Paris, the head men's basketball coach at the University of South Carolina. And those are valid. Those are very valid. And that's why I deem 2026 to be the year of Jeremiah Donati. All right, you had your honeymoon year last year. I don't mind that he didn't make a move on Lamont Paris last year. I don't mind that he didn't make a move on Paul Maneri after 1 year. I didn't think he should have gotten rid of Shane Beamer last year. I was perfectly fine with everything that Jeremiah Donati did last year. But this is the year of Jeremiah Donati. And if this basketball team keeps trending in the direction that I'm pretty certain that they're going to go, well, I don't see Lamont Paris being let go midseason. That's just not what happens in college basketball. It's not football. But he's going to have to make some decisions on the future of this program. And more importantly, and I'm intrigued by this, who he can go and get. Who he can go out and get. I can throw a whole bunch of names out and be like, well, this guy's good, that guy's good, this guy would be a good fit, that guy's not a bad fit. But who does Jeremiah Donati think that he can get, if that is the direction he decides to go, that rejuvenates this basketball program? Then, as if that's not enough, just one major coaching change, then all eyes go about a month from now, about a month and a week, to baseball. One of the prized possessions of the University of South Carolina. The program, outside of women's basketball, the program that we all hold is our shining star, who does not go 6-24, or 6-25, counting the one conference tournament game, does not go 6-24. That is inexcusable for South Carolina baseball. And Paul Maneri, you're on the clock. We don't do this. You said you came here to win. We expect you to win. And South Carolina baseball should not ever take a back seat to any team in the country. The fan base, I don't think the fan base at South Carolina basketball is good. Let me be clear about that. I don't think it's a smart fan base. And why should you be? You haven't seen good basketball for the better half of 50 years. It's not a knowledgeable fan base in basketball. There's a lot of people like, well, we should go to the tournament every 3 years. No. Not right now. Not at this stage. Baseball, on the other hand, South Carolina baseball fans are extremely knowledgeable and amongst some of the best in the country because you've seen good baseball. You know what good baseball looks like. You can define 2025 and even 2024 when they made a regional. South Carolina baseball fans are amongst the best in the country. And they'll travel, and they're loyal, and they'll pack out Founders Park. And like any other sport, at any other program, if you're a winner, they will come. Same with basketball, by the way. And that's across the board. That's across the board for any sport that's not an event like football. Football is a flat-out event. That's why people would go in the 80s and the 90s when South Carolina stunk, because you go and you tailgate and you wear your outfits and you set up your tailgates, and then you go to the game. Basketball and baseball are not that way. But South Carolina has brilliant baseball fans. And they're not going to sit around this year and watch another 6-24 conference season or really a losing season that doesn't include some form of postseason play. So that's important. Then you carry over to football season, and let's be honest, again, kind of a big year in football. It's year 6. Shane Beamer's got 3 winning seasons, 2 pretty solid seasons, 2 bad seasons, 4-8 and 5-7. It's a big year. There's really no reason a program like the University of South Carolina should be missing any bowl at all. There's 40 freaking 2 of them. Everybody goes to a bowl. Pretty much everybody. There's no reason South Carolina, under an established coach, should be missing a bowl game. I did come to a realization. I do think, and I'm not going to spend time on this right now because it just popped back into my brain as I'm saying that, going 4-8 is better than 6-6 because I feel like 4-8 causes extreme change. Whereas 6-6 and you go to a bowl game and you win, you're 7-6. Everybody's like, yeah, if we'd have just done this slightly different, we'd have just done that. Yeah, let's stay status quo with everything we got. So I'm actually okay with 4-8 now. I've kind of maybe it was because of the kidney stuff. I'm not indulging in beverages quite the way I used to. So maybe this is clear thinking. Maybe this is a problem with not doing that. But I actually am okay now with 4-8. If you're gonna be 6-6, just go ahead and be 4-8. Let's make changes. Just go ahead and be really bad. So I'm actually okay with what South Carolina did this year because I think it's generating like change. And so far, so good. Kendall Briles, Stan Drayton, Randy Clements, recruiting class still in place. Deion Barnes. I think Deion Barnes is not. Whether he's an upgrade over Sterling Lucas or not, I have no clue. But I can tell you this, he's not a downgrade. They didn't go down with that hire. So I'm okay with all of it. I'm okay with all of it. I've accepted it. But 2026 now is the year of Jeremiah Donati. All eyes are on you, Buddy Rowe. You're going to have to deal with this basketball program first. And, again, tonight is a big game simply from the standpoint of I will be tuned in, 7 o'clock, ESPN, 6:30 pregame right here on 107.5 The Game, 7 o'clock tip-off. I'll be tuned in. And if South Carolina wins, you know what? My interest drags on to Saturday a little bit. And if they lose, and especially if they lose bad, the conversation we are having is not how do they fix this for that coach. It's how is the program fixed. 803-404-6100. We'll talk more about that with John Whittle coming up later on here in the next segment. So there's basketball. There's Jeremiah Donati. Baseball also is something that certainly we'll start talking more about this month because, again, as I just pointed out, the importance of the year. Other news from today, the transfer portal, South Carolina losing a defensive end, Jalen Brown. I would have loved to see him stick around. I think he has a lot of potential. South Carolina's losing some. They've lost some guys who have potential. You got to be honest about that. I saw Matt Zentz with, I believe that's On 3 here, and he has put out a tweet, and it's true. He has put out a tweet, and it talks about that Tree Babalade is now one of the highest paid offensive tackles in college football. He signed with, are he committed to? I don't know. He's with Nebraska now. He's going to Nebraska. And as I said, cool, if you want to go to Nebraska, go. If that's who you want to be coached by, Lonnie Teasley, go. I don't want you here. But I would have loved to have Tree Babalade here from the standpoint of development. And because I think he is a talented offensive lineman. And I think he has been done a disservice by how bad the previous offensive line coach was. I would rather have Tree Babalade here than be in that transfer portal right now, scounging the bottom of the bucket that is what is now the transfer portal dating app. Swipe right or swipe left. I feel like I know that Tree Babalade can be. I've seen it. I have seen him have decent games. As a freshman, he was a solid player. Against Missouri last year in 2024, he came in and was fine. I have seen him have good games. I know what he's capable of, and I believe he is capable of so much more with competent coaching that he has not had and will not get if he goes to Nebraska. Trevon Ball, same way. I know Trevon Ball has had good games at this university. He didn't have any this year. Babalade didn't have any this year. Josiah Thompson did not have any this year. They stunk. Offensive line absolutely was horrendous this year. Stunk. And it's the easiest thing in the world to say, well, I don't want any of those guys back. Couldn't block me and my sister. Yeah, but they've done it in the past. And I would prefer to have that with a new coach who's supposed to be really good, who's supposed to be able to coach these guys up. I'd rather have the dudes that I know about than the ones that I have no clue who I've got to bring in here and figure it out. Because why do you think they're transferring? Like, they're either transferring for the money, that ain't good, or they're transferring because they weren't good enough for their university. We'll continue to talk transfer portal as well as we roll through the day. 803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in this afternoon. We'll get into a little more basketball with John Whittle. What are we doing? Where are we going? And I think it's fair to start having that conversation. It's early. Things can turn around. They can go 6-17-1. They can. It is mathematically possible. But where are we going? And it's fair to have this conversation early on in the season so that we kind of get it out of the way. 803-404-6100. John Whittle due up next with us at the Big Spur talking some basketball. It is the Halftime Show. It is 1:17 on a Tuesday. Normally during the fall, we do Talking Tuesday with Shane Beamer. But today, I bring in somebody just as important, just as knowledgeable, but we're talking basketball. John Whittle, how you doing, young man? How was Christmas and New Year's for you?
Wonderful. Relaxing. Hopefully next year's busier. And Shane Beamer would probably like that, too. He might be talking on a Tuesday.
Yes. This would be if you were gearing up for a playoff game. This might be a Talking Tuesday here on a Tuesday or on a Thursday or Friday. And you are right. It was a kind of a quiet December with no bowl game. We did have some coaching decisions that had to be made, and it led us into the transfer portal. But you'd like to have December to maybe discuss basketball a little bit more. And John, that's why I'm having you on today. This basketball program. It really, I'll let you be honest about how you want to address it, but it really now seems like in a state of flux with moving forward here with the way they've played and now looking at the SEC schedule and what they probably need to do to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a real challenge. It feels like, after watching, 14 games so far this year, a handful against quality competition, and then 9 games, all wins against quad 4 opponents. I guess you can say that South Carolina has avoided a bad loss this year, which is kind of nice, but at the same time don't really have any good wins yet to speak of. So they have an opportunity tonight to kind of change the narrative a little bit, I guess. LSU's without their starting point guard and guy in the SEC guy who leads the SEC in assists with over 7 a game. So, that'll be beneficial. But, Vanderbilt was also without one of their main players, maybe their best player, second best at least. And South Carolina still trailed by double digits most of the game and was never really overly competitive apart from, a short stretch there towards the end of the first half. But, yeah, it's hard to point to reasons why you feel like this team can pull this thing around, turn this thing around.
And that's what's kind of concerning. Again, I don't think the SEC is as difficult as it was last year. It's not the same type of conference, but it's still a very good conference. And this is year 4 of Lamont Paris. We've had 2 really bad seasons, 1 epically great season. Where do you feel this program – that's kind of the big question to me. Where do you feel this program stands in year 4 under Lamont Paris, given – what at least it was competitive under Frank Martin. It was not always the best program, but it was competitive. Where do you feel this program is right now?
Well, I mean, I get where you're coming from, and I understand the question. It's hard for me to sit here and give a full autopsy when there's only been 1 game out of 18 in SEC play. So, that's probably a better question for a little bit later, but at the same time, you really like what you did 2 years ago, and Lamont got the big contract extension, and then last year they tried to change some things. Last year they tried to get a little bit more athletic so they could compete with the likes of Auburn just from an athleticism standpoint, and Lamont kind of got away from kind of what made his team good in year 2 of his tenure. And, it just didn't work. Jamari Thomas just wasn't a fit, and Nick Pringle just wasn't a fit. And, Lamont wants guys who can space the floor and shoot. And, ideally he'll have, at least 4 guys on the court who can shoot the 3 ball, if not 5. And, that's kind of how they recruited this year. I'm not taking anything away from Colin Murray-Boyles. He's incredible and was a lottery pick. But when you put him and Nick Pringle out on the court together, those guys aren't spacing the floor for a whole heck of a lot. When it comes to shooting the 3 ball, Colin could obviously do some things in the mid-range, and teams had to respect that. And you get double teams and could manipulate some defenses that way. But he went back to more of his style this year and getting some guys who can shoot. But turns out these guys can't shoot. South Carolina's 15th in the SEC in 3-point percentage and almost 300 nationally out of 300 and I think 65 teams. So it hadn't come together. The roster he's put together may be more his style in terms of fit and how he wants to play. But, the guys just aren't good enough to compete at this level this year, as I see it right now. But, again, we're one game into an 18-game SEC.
I've seen you mention this on the BigSpur.com, so I'll kind of ask you this. Maybe one of the biggest surprises has been Eli Ellis, who's been solid. He hadn't been bad, but the shooting percentages for him, I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's a slight injury thing. What is your thoughts on Ellis and what we've seen from him so far this year?
Well, I will say that there's really only one thing about Eli that has surprised me this year, and that's his inability to hit some of these three-point shots. I mean, he's shooting, I think, 20.5% from three, and I'd have thought he'd be at double that if we're being honest. If you'd have told me he's at 41%, I'd say that sounds exactly right to me. But he's down at 20.5% from three, and nothing else about his game has surprised me. It doesn't surprise me a bit that he's got a bunch of assists. It doesn't surprise me a bit that he's made plays around the basket, and it doesn't surprise me a bit that he's gotten rebounds despite the fact that he's a 6 foot, only moderately athletic dude. Like that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that he isn't driving past people to get into the lane to create those shots. He's had to work for it, body some guys up, and be physical. It doesn't surprise me that he's getting beat off the dribble from time to time by these guys who are faster than him. So the good and the bad that he's brought doesn't surprise me. Only thing that surprises me is that 3-point percentage. That's kind of mind-boggling to me. Usually, if a guy is billed as a great 3-point shooter, and they come in and they're missing a lot, it's because the game has been sped up for them. They're taking bad shots. They're just doing things that the game is just moving too fast for a freshman, and that hadn't been the case for Eli, because so much of the game is moving pretty slowly for him. The transition's been pretty good in so many ways, and he's getting open shots. He's not taking bad shots. He's getting open ones, and they're just not going in. So, it's hard to sit here and say that and put too much of the blame on Eli and on his shoulders. But if he's shooting the way you expect, then South Carolina probably has another win or maybe two out there on the schedule, because several of these games that they've lost have been pretty close. And if you get a guy who's shooting like you thought he would, then maybe you change the game a little bit.
It is. He's having a good freshman year. You're right about the shooting. I mean, you look at the statistics. He's averaging 10 points. He's got a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. He's rebounding the ball fairly well. He's shooting 87.5% from the foul line. I mean, this is truthfully a very good freshman year. And that's the next question that leads me to ask you is, you go, and I think this is going to be what we all try to decipher as we go through the next several weeks. What gives you hope that Lamont Paris is the guy, aside from completely turning it around? One thing for me is, John, I like this freshman class. I like E.J. Walker. Eli Ellis is a guy, again, that I'm pretty high on here, and I think so much was expected of him. But if you look at his numbers, he's having a good freshman season. I really like Grant Polk. I think Grant Polk can be a very solid college basketball player, and I like Hayden Simeon. It feels like he's got a nice core of players that he's got to figure out how to build around moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it feels that way, but we're in this transfer portal world where guys come and go as they please, and it is what it is. Like you have guys who say they're going into the portal, then end up staying, go into the portal, come back out. You go into the portal, commit somewhere, then flip your commit to somewhere. Like it's crazy. Like you basically have teams year by year right now under the current structure, and it is great to have some young guys who you can grow up in the program and want to grow up in the program. And if you can hold on to those guys, I completely agree. It's a pretty good freshman class. But I don't know that you can bank on that. And when you have a team that doesn't win a lot of games, those players end up wanting to transfer to go to a spot where they can win more games. And so much of it is about money now, but there's also the element of winning too. And guys usually are competitors, at least the ones you want on your team are competitors, and they want to win. And, if you're not, and especially if you've had two back-to-back really bad seasons, which we're not there yet, but if you have two bad back-to-back seasons, that kind of increases the drive to want to transfer again. So, I agree with you. I like the freshman class. I don't know that you're able to hang on to all these guys, not because of Lamont, not because of Gamecock basketball, just because of what college sports is right now. Shoot, and it's not just this year. It's been several years now. Like Puff Howard was saying that he would literally die for the University of South Carolina, and played a bunch as a freshman, and then gets into the transfer portal anyway, and he's back in the portal again this year after leaving Florida. So, it's really hard to think program now, and maybe it's just a discussion for another day and probably off of the radio. But it's just a year by year thing at this point in college athletics. It's not a program anymore. It's a season. It's a year by year.
Yeah, and again, I think that'll be. Unfortunately, it'll have to be some discussion for radio as we move forward, depending on how this team trends. Got about 30 seconds with you, so I'll just let you out on this. Baseball is about a month away. Do you have one word that describes your feelings for baseball?
One word, I don't know. Hesitant, maybe.
Okay.
Gun shy. I was a little bit. I'm usually pretty sharp with my preseason analysis, and last year I just wasn't, and this year I'm a little bit more gun shy. I like a lot of the pieces of the pitching staff. I've got a lot more questions from a position player standpoint, both from an offensive and defensive standpoint. But they brought in a whole bunch of new guys, a whole bunch of new blood. We'll see how they click together, but I'm a little gun shy and wanting to make too many claims.
John, we appreciate it, buddy. That's a good way to wrap it up, man. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
Take care. All right, we'll come back, talk a little college football playoff. It's the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. You've heard me talk about them. They've been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for over 30 years. That's right, 30 years. They've been taking care of families just like yours and just like mine, whether it's your home or your business, whether you're here in Columbia or Florence, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, Aiken, wherever, Mid-State Roofing is ready to help you, and it all starts with a phone call, 803-356-1919. Whether it's a high-rise or a hospital, whether it's manufacturing or industrial, Mid-State Roofing designs and installs bonded systems with a protective guarantee that'll keep your operation dry and running long into the future. And they're there to do that for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You heard that right, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You call Mid-State Roofing, you'll speak with an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee. Don't wait another day. 803-356-1919. Call Mid-State Roofing today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. 1:35 on your Tuesday. Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. Thank you. Big thank you to John Whittle for joining us there. J.C. Shurburtt set to join us coming up in about 40 minutes as well. We'll get more into the transfer portal, but John Whittle talking a little basketball with us. And, you know, coming off of 2025 in which South Carolina in the major three sports, the big three, the men's three, football, baseball, basketball, was so atrocious across the board that it's fair to have these conversations and to not just say, hey, we want to be good at one sport, or two, we want to be competitive at all three. I mean, look at Vanderbilt. It's fair to make the argument. It is perfectly fair to make the argument that Vanderbilt last year had the best big three, if you will, performance of anybody. Baseball was solid. Football, obviously, very good. Basketball right now is a top 10 team. Projected 2 seed in the NCAA tournament as we kind of close out the year. And Vanderbilt last year made the NCAA basketball tournament under Mark Byington. So there's no reason that South Carolina shouldn't be in that echelon and expect to be competitive across the board. And look, because we're in January and 2026 has got to be a year of change, and basketball's on the clock. We know what Dawn Staley is going to provide: an NCAA tournament berth, maybe a run, maybe a Final Four, maybe a national championship. Men's basketball's got to step up their game. And I think it's going to be an interesting year for Jeremiah Donati to make some of these decisions. And as I said, there are reasons. I remember when Darren Horn got fired, the reasoning was that Eric Hyman did not see a future. He did not see a future under Darren Horn. He probably would have given him a year 5, as bad as that thing was, but he did not see a future. And that's going to be the big thing for me with Lamont Paris as we move through this season and we move toward March and so forth and so on. You know, is there a future here? And I like the freshman class. Now, you heard John Whittle say something that I've agreed with. All sports are basically year to year now. No longer are you recruiting a freshman class and thinking, all right, we're going to let these guys develop, and in 3 years we're going to be solid. You know, the Eddie Fogler mindset of making the NCAA basketball tournament was you recruit a class, you have a bad year, you go to the NIT, your third year is your NIT, NCAA right there, and then hopefully you have back-to-back NCAA years. And then you start over. He was a 5-year window. I remember that conversation with him, 5-year window kind of guy. And you know, you don't get that in any sport now. You don't get that in football, baseball, basketball. So South Carolina basketball, we're going to have to look at come February, mid-February, and maybe further, and kind of be like, all right, what is the future of this program with Lamont Paris? And that's what Jeremiah Donati is going to have to decide. And it's okay. It is perfectly fine to start having that conversation today as they get ready for LSU tonight. Again, coverage right here on 107.5 The Game, 6:30 tonight, 7 o'clock tip-off. Game's also on ESPNU for those that want to visually take that in. 803-404-6100. College football playoff. All right, Mississippi. What do we think about the Rebs? Is this a fun story? Are you pulling for them more now post Lane Kiffin than you would have with Lane Kiffin? Are you that person who's going, yeah, jab it to Kiffin? Show him that he made a bad decision. Show him that he is an evil, evil person by continuing to win. And Kiffin's kind of put in a hard spot here because they're keeping his coordinators away from him. In the transfer portal and the recruiting process, everything, Kiffin's not getting everything that he needs to start really building LSU. And here's Pete Golding yesterday talking about the status of the outgoing staff for the rest of the college football playoff.
Okay, so just to be perfectly clear, every staff member you have who is employed by LSU will continue to coach with Ole Miss through the national championship.
They have every opportunity like they have up to this point, right, to be able to make that decision. So week in and week out, I don't dictate whether they do that or not because they're not employed by me. Up to this point, that is how it's been, and that's my expectation.
So Pete Golding expecting Charlie Weiss Jr. and several of the other guys to stick around. And they should. They should. They owe it to Mississippi, they owe it to the players. And this is a fun little, and maybe, again, this is why I'm a little more intrigued by the college football playoff. It's got my attention. Last year, I can't say it did. Last year, I can't say that at this point when it was Penn State and Notre Dame, who was it, Ohio State and somebody I can't remember last year off the top of my head. But this feels more intriguing. And one of those storylines is Mississippi. It's the fact that, yeah, essentially they've come out. Now, I was, just for the record, because I like to be right, I was a little bit ahead of this this year, saying I really liked Mississippi, that I thought maybe they were the best team in the SEC. That was about end of October, early November. And they're playing like it. I did not have them beating Georgia this past weekend, or whatever, however we want to label it, a week ago, I guess. I thought Georgia would win that game. I thought Georgia was steamrolling toward a showdown with Indiana for the national championship. But here's Mississippi and here's Miami. And you know what? I'm not a Miami fan. And my brother-in-law's a Miami fan. And he's one of those Miami fans too. Okay? He's one of those Miami fans. The ones that you can only spend about 7 minutes with during a game. And he's decked out in his green and orange. And I love him. Great brother-in-law. But you can't watch a game with him. And part of me is thankful that they canceled the Miami-South Carolina series for next year. I don't know if I could have done it. It would have put the family at odds. But I love him. But we all know those Miami fans. Remember, we haven't heard from them in 20-some-odd years. And now the U is back, and now I got Michael Irvin over here whipping trash cans with a belt. And by the way, if that junk comes to AAU basketball or anything, and I think it already has, the BTA, belt to blank, man, get out of here with that. But we got Michael Irvin whipping trash cans with a jersey on it, taking his belt off. We got Ray Lewis trying to act like now he's been a part of this for a long time. You know, the Canes I enjoy it. I love it. I love that they're in this. I love that they're bringing their fan base along with their golden chains and their gold teeth and everything that is Miami. And I love that Mississippi's in it, and they've given us a run, and they've given us something to talk about. And that Kirk Cignetti's doing odd facial expressions, and that he's kind of a jerk, quite frankly. And we need that. And then you got Oregon and all the money that comes with Oregon and Phil Knight and Dan Lanning and everything. I enjoy this. I'm in for it. And I don't know if this is how it's going to always be, or I don't know if this is a special year. I don't know if you're still invested in it. Thursday night, 7:30, Miami and Mississippi. Count me in. It's appointment television. I'll be somewhere. Wings, pizza. I don't know what I'm going to have just yet, but I know that I'm going to be watching that game. And I know on Friday night, I know I'll be excited for Oregon, Indiana, and that might be the best game of the playoffs. This has actually been enjoyable. Whereas I don't think last year was. I thought last year was long and tedious, and it just kind of dragged out. And I don't know if that's, again, I don't know from my standpoint. I'm only speaking for me. I can't speak for you. Last year, you might have been incredibly involved. If you were a Ohio State fan or a Notre Dame fan, I know our good buddy Saki is a huge Ohio State fan. And, yeah, I get it. He was fully invested last year. But I can't say that I felt the same for I can't say I felt the same for myself. So I'm intrigued. I love it. And you got Mississippi, a storyline there. You got Miami, who's a storyline there. You got Indiana and Oregon. We're being treated to good college football. The offseason stinks. The transfer portal and NIL and all that, it is a plague amongst our favorite sport. But the product on the field has never been better. It's worth watching. Block out all the other stuff. The product on the field is worth watching. And this college football playoff has been absolutely phenomenal. 803-404-6100. We'll wrap up hour number 2. It's the halftime show. Wrapping up hour number 2 here. Again, thank you to John Whittle. Some basketball discussion. Reminder tonight, 6:30 pregame. You catch Derek and Casey on 107.5 The Game right here in Columbia for the pregame, and then 7 o'clock tip-off. That game will be on ESPNU for those of you interested in checking it out. I want to have – I know that right now basketball is a little bit of a drain. Well, number one, I know that it's secondary to the transfer portal. I know that a lot of you are far more concerned with who are we getting in the transfer portal than how's the basketball team doing. I get that. But I do think for the state of South Carolina athletics and the year that I think 2026 needs to be, and the fact that I continue to call it the year of Jeremiah Donati, we have to monitor this. And decisions are going to, you never want to see anybody lose their job. And Lamont Paris, I've said, we've had him in here, and I'm a big fan of Lamont Paris. I'm a big fan of talking basketball with him. I'm a big fan of talking life with him. I'm a big fan of his demeanor and how he is. But you got to win in this game. And South Carolina, to take you down a path, I think South Carolina fans need to pay more. I think South Carolina fans need to do more. But I also think you pay a decent amount enough, and it's perfectly fair to expect more out of not just football, but all your sports across the board. Because that's where we are in 2026 with college athletics. It is a $1 billion game now. And basketball is something at South Carolina that I've got reasoning that I think that things could be a lot better around here, but it's not been. And you can't accept 2 or 3 great years for every 10. And South Carolina fans, especially in basketball, need to maybe expect a little bit more. And that also means going to the games. Even when they stink, it means going to the games. And so I think that this year in particular, when we start to talk about all the changes to college athletics, rev share and NIL and transfer portal and so forth, just everything that's happened, I think you expect more. And it starts with basketball, and then we'll move on to baseball. We're going to do this with Paul Maneri and the baseball program starting in February. And then we're going to do it with football in the fall. And Shane Beamer is going to be expected to win with this schedule. He's going to be expected to get to a bare minimum of 7 victories. Basketball should be expected. Look, baby step your way to being basketball needs to baby step its way to being a competitive program, but there's no reason that you shouldn't expect South Carolina basketball to be in the NCAA tournament 2 out of every 5 years. That's a great start, by the way. For those of you like, Bill, that's way underachieving. But you're talking about a program over the last 50 years who was averaging 1 tournament appearance every 10. 2 and 5 is miraculous. I mean, we are talking about a basketball program here that, quite frankly, if you're being honest, is one of the worst in high major college basketball. Big East, SEC, ACC, Big 12. I feel like I just left one out. Big 10. So you gotta build your way up first. But we'll talk more about this big game. A game tonight that I think, again, comes from the standpoint of trying to keep fans invested and interested so that Colonial Life Arena is not a ghost town by the end of January, because that's a shame. I mean, that is an absolute shame if that's the way it is for the men's games. I know the women's games will be packed out. So, again, tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip-off time. You can catch it right here on 107.5 The Game, or obviously, as I mentioned, you can tune in ESPNU. LSU is a 7.5-point favorite. The over-under in that game is set right now at 146.5. And the way South Carolina shoots the ball, and not that they've shot it well, but the way they want to shoot it, you never know with those guys. They could come out, they could be nice and comfy down there at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center, and they could shoot really well tonight and make like something out of 14, like 14 to 24, and they could win the ball game. I don't put it past them to do that. They're going to have a game or two. You simply have to have a game or two with guys that they can shoot where you make them. So a reason to tune in tonight. Also tonight, several other actually pretty good games taking place. Number 6 Duke traveling to number 20 Louisville tonight, the KFC Yum Center. So college basketball really in full effect. The team that South Carolina plays on Saturday, number 18 Georgia, traveling to Florida tonight, the Stephen O'Connell Center. The game will be on the on the SEC network. So you've got two really good games taking place there right off the bat for conference play, and then you get into the night games. Texas at Tennessee tonight, ESPN2, and TCU at Kansas. Jamie Dixon, just throwing it out there, maybe a name, even though that's his alma mater, that would surface, maybe, if you will, should South Carolina make a move. So some college basketball tonight. Coming up next hour, we'll get back into a little bit of the college football playoff. We'll talk a little bit about the transfer portal with J.C. Shurburtt, and who knows what else. Who knows what else? I also have a great event coming up this Saturday for Steve Taneyhill down in 5 Points. We got to tell you about, because we want you to come out and be a part of it. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Captain David Ayer. It is the halftime show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. That's right, Mid-State Roofing. Let me tell you something. Your goal in life is to keep your operation dry and running long into the future. Now, the thing is, you don't really think about that until you have a leak, and then you're like, oh, bleep. Now what are we going to do? Well, guess what? Mid-State Roofing, they think about it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They know that your home or your business, well, it's important to have a protective and guaranteed bonded system over your house or your business. They want to make sure that you stay dry and running long into the future. So they're there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call them at 3 a.m., at 6 a.m., 9 a.m. You get the point. You see where I'm going with this. Mid-State Roofing, you'll speak with an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee. That's what makes their customer service stand out and has made them the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for over 30 years. That customer service. Call today, 803-356-1919. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. 2 o'clock Tuesday. Here at the 1301 Gervais Street Studios, where myself, Captain David Dare, holding it down. We got one more hour, and we'll see if Tyler is good to come back tomorrow. His voice a little shot, and when you do sports talk radio, you need your voice. It's very important. Very, very important. And so let's get Tyler healthy and get the family back together starting hopefully tomorrow, and cut up and get going here on 2026, where it's going to be an interesting spring or winter/spring here, because we're debating this. I shouldn't say debating, but we're discussing this college basketball stuff for the University of South Carolina, which is at a crossroads. Jeremiah Donati has got to be the guy that leads this program out of the wilderness, if you will. There's been great moments for it. The Final Four, I'll say it again, is to me the greatest moment in South Carolina sports history. And the reason for that is, my contention for that is that I don't think we'll ever see it again. I hope we do. I'd love to, good Lord, I'd love to see that run again. I think we'll see women's basketball win another championship. It'll be one of many. I think we'll see somebody at some point win another baseball championship for South Carolina. They're too good of a program to be held down for the rest of our lives, depending on how long you get to live. They're just too good. We haven't seen great success in football, so I can't say like, oh, good to see that again. But I think we'll see again some level of success. But basketball, that Final Four run, that was so miraculous, and I think all of us enjoyed it so much. You'd love to see us get to the tournament, just win another game, right? Just hang around for the weekend. And so that's got to be the goal, and that's got to be what Jeremiah Donati's now first line of business is this year. He's done a good job. He's got the football stadium up and running. I think he has given everything that Shane Beamer needs to excel with that football program. It seems like on the surface that Jeremiah Donati is giving him financially the backing that he needs to hire coaches, to do what he's got to do. So, you're talking about an AD now who I think not only has his coaches back, but understands where we are at, where this university is at in terms of the broad spectrum of college athletics and what needs to be done to win on the field. And so then that'll bring us back around to basketball come late February, early March. And where's this program? And again, I don't want to write off Lamont Paris, and I don't want to write off this team. Maybe they can get hot. I do think we didn't get into the Ken Palm rankings necessarily with John Whittle in the previous hour, but it's going to be, even if they were successful in the SEC, and by successful I mean 10-8, 11-7, it's still going to be a little bit of an uphill battle. They've put themselves in such a hole with these rankings, these Ken Palm rankings, that the NCAA pays so much, the committee pays so much attention to. So we'll continue to monitor the situation really over the next month, and I'm going to talk more about it than we typically do because, as I said, I think South Carolina basketball is at a crossroads right now in terms of you've got to get this program going back to being competitive, really being competitive. And this particular decade, and that includes the 6-15 COVID year, this program hadn't been competitive. It hadn't been. And it's a drain financially on the university. It's a drain financially on the donors. And, something's got to be fixed. And now's the time to draw the line in the sand on that. And the same thing will occur with baseball, as I've said multiple times. The same thing will occur. And then football in the fall. 803-404-6100. Let's get to some of these text messages that have come in over the last hour. Teddy says, hey, Bill, what are the names of some of the O-line transfer players coming in? This is a fluid situation. It really is crazy because you've got guys that are supposed to come in and they cancel guys, or they cancel visits. I think there were some guys who were supposed to be in over the weekend and they ended up not making it in. So I truthfully follow Hale McGranahan, follow Wes and Mitchell, follow the Gamecock Central guys and the Big Spur guys. They are the absolute best in the business. Let me tell you, there's a few other little websites out there and they do a good job, but those guys know what they're talking about. They're on top of it, and it's better off for you to follow those guys instead of me up here, because by the time I get the information, I could be a little late. Now, Hale McGranahan does have a list Just a couple of the offensive linemen is Bryant Williams, who is expected to be on campus today, an offensive tackle out of Louisiana. Hank Purvis from Purdue, I know, has put up I believe it was an Instagram post that he was at South Carolina. I think he's about 6'5", 350, came from Purdue. DJ Chester is another guy from LSU who is expected to be on campus, I believe, yesterday. So, but follow the Gamecock Central and the BigSpur.com. They'll be able to keep you updated on all that as things are happening, and they're a little more on top of it than I am from that standpoint. South Carolina's also already hosted Carter Miller, a center from Central Florida. So they've got some guys on campus, but again, this situation with the transfer portal is so fluid. And if you're paying attention to some of the tweets that are coming in out there, one other thing about it is people are really starting to say that this year in particular, financially things have escalated a little bit. Not that they weren't out of control already, but they've escalated now even beyond what things had been happening. So it's a man's game. It's a man's game, and it's going to require man's money in terms of stepping up and putting that dollar figure forward to land who you want to get. And as I pointed out with Vandravius Jacobs, who I think, the way I kind of think this probably went down, he probably came in and said, hey, Coach, I want X amount of dollars. Well, I'll just throw out a number, $1.2 million. And then Shane Beamer's got to make a decision. Are you worth that money? And it sucks. It stinks. This is not the way college football should be. It's not the way college athletics should be, and I'm not going to dive right now into what is going on with college basketball and guys that are signing professional contracts and the Europeans who are playing professionally and now coming over and being able to play college. We'll get into that at another time and another day. But the evolution of college athletics right now is sickening. It is absolutely sickening. The product on the field is phenomenal. The product on the court is absolutely phenomenal. You put our sports, you put our college sports on the court, the field, in the stadium, they're awesome. College football's never been better from a standpoint of the actual product that is played. The actual games that take place. When you remove yourself from the outside world of transfer portal and NIL and everything else, and you just watch a game, you watch Georgia and Mississippi, it is a phenomenal, phenomenal product. It's the minutia outside of it that is awful, that has changed the game the way we know it. And so, Shane Beamer, Lamont Paris, Paul Maneri, Don Staley, Ashley Chastain Woodard, Tony Annan, all college coaches, now they have to deal with it. They have to deal with it. They have to deal with a player coming to them now and going, Coach, I want this amount of money, or else I'm going to go. There's a report out there from Matt Zentz today with, I believe, On3 Sports. I can't remember who Matt works for. And he, in a tweet, has said that Tree Babalade has now become the highest paid tackle, or one of the highest paid tackles in college football. And I want you to think about that for a second, because I prefer Tree Babalade be at the University of South Carolina. I think that it was a blow to lose him. I don't think he was very good last year, but I think it's a blow to learn him. We're going to talk more about this coming up over the next 30 minutes with J.C. Shurburtt. But Matt Zentz, I believe it was Matt Zentz, is reporting that he is now one of the highest paid tackles. It says expected to be one of the highest paid offensive tackles in the nation. Matt Zentz put this out 2 hours ago. Would have you been happy with Shane Beamer if he made him one of the highest paid tackles? If South Carolina had forked up the money? Not the way he played. Not the way he played last year. He didn't deserve it. And it's a loss from the standpoint of you want talented players on your roster, but not if he's going to cost that much money. No, sir, no way. And so that's where these guys are at. That's, when Vandravius Jacobs, the wide receiver, comes into your office and says, I like it here, Coach. I like our quarterback. I like our new offensive coordinator, but I need $1.2 million. And you got to weigh, is Vandravius Jacobs worth it? This is not the way it should be, but it is. And we have to adapt, and we have to adjust. So South Carolina today also losing defensive end Jalen Brown to the transfer portal. Was a big pickup last year, was a guy that people were really excited about. Then he gets injured in the spring, never ends up playing. Was a guy that I was really intrigued with. I know the coaching staff was going to hold him back a little bit in the spring and then was going to let him get going. But That's a loss. We'll see where he goes. Knee injury, though, could set you back a little bit. 803-404-6100. Albert weighs in. This is regarding basketball. No need to beat around the bush. There's no hope or future with the current men's regime, if we're being honest. Baseball is looking to be in the same boat, sadly. Donati has to make the tough decisions, or his seat will be hot, too. Sam weighs in this afternoon and says, Bill, quick question. Does it seem to you that Beamer and his evaluation team seem to get too clever when identifying portal prospects instead of doing exactly what Mississippi, Kentucky, and others on our level tend to do, which is pay the highly ranked guys and stop worrying about finding diamonds in the rough? I know our collective bag is no more bare than theirs. Our collective bag is actually technically more bare than Mississippi. We've discussed this. Mississippi, for whatever reason, has no problem coming up with so much money and are able to use it. And that's what makes them the way they are. But, I think there's a chemistry element, too, now. There's a chemistry element when you're doing this. You can't have guys who come in and if you lose 3 games by the end of September are basically ready to quit on your team. I think you've got to do the evaluation and you've got to do your homework to make sure you find the guys that are not going to tarnish the locker room midway through the season and you lose the team. I'll say this for Shane Beamer. I don't feel like in his tenure I've ever looked at that locker room and felt like he's lost the team. And I do think there is something to be said for that. I think there is something to be said for the fact that even when they've been down and out, he has managed to, it appears, hold that locker room together. And that is very important, not just for that particular year, but for the program moving forward. 803-404-6100. We'll come back. We'll talk more transfer portal, things like that with J.C. Shurburtt. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Old Timey Meat Market. Let me tell you what, Christmas, New Year's, they were all phenomenal. And all of it was because of Old Timey Meat Market. The Gunner House meals were absolutely epic. On New Year's Eve, Austin and I, Old Timey Meat Market got us taken care of with some incredible baby back ribs and scallops, by the way. Baby back ribs and scallops. But Austin loved the baby back ribs. Put them on the smoker, the Traeger smoker. Absolutely phenomenal. And you know what? We had an incredible New Year's. On Christmas, it was steaks. The kids and I had steaks. Phenomenal steaks from Old Timey Meat Market. I mentioned the scallops. How about the breakfast foods? That's right. Biscuits, sausage, onion sausage. Old Timey Meat Market has it all. So if you're thinking about a great dinner tonight or you're already looking ahead to the weekend and thinking about grilling out because the weather's going to be nice, your first stop needs to be at one of their 3 locations. South Congaree, the Irmo store in St. Andrews, or the Lexington store. You're going to run into me, I can guarantee it. Stop by Old Timey Meat Market today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. 2:17 on a Tuesday, January the 6th, as we roll along here, coming off of our 2-week break. A lot transpiring, J.C. Shurburtt, the godfather of South Carolina internet sports. I was just thinking today, J.C., the connections that you and I, John Whittle, I'll throw in there Brian Shoemaker, Wes, and Chris, the six of us are really the ones that formulated this thing about 20 years ago.
Yeah, back in Gamecock Central was before that, but yeah, I've worked with those guys over there, and they certainly I certainly respect them. And Whittle has worked for me for a while, and you worked with us back then, and it's been a nice long road. Not over yet, though, man. Not over yet.
Not even. A lot that we got to cover. Right now, it's college sports. That's what I was just talking about. The transition with the transfer portal and everything. I'll say this, and I don't know if you agree. The product on the field, on the court, on the baseball diamond, as good as it's ever been. The product off the court, off the field, off the baseball diamond, sickening.
I don't know that I agree.
Okay.
And I'll say, and this is why. Now, the product, as far as being a popular product, and people caring about the games and tuning in, it's never been more popular. But I watched the FCS National Championship game last night, and I just kind of went on a monologue about this on my show. The desire those players played with, the toughness, the competitiveness, it dwarfs things that I've seen at the Power 4 level all season.
Okay.
Not a lot of talent on the field, right? But as far as just the desire to win, and you can obviously see that. Now, it's a championship game, but I was kind of making an apples-to-apples comparison deal with the playoff, The one team that plays like that in college football is undefeated and ranked number one in the country, at Indiana University. The rest of the teams take days off now in college. They don't always play hard. You have guys that make business decisions, guys that don't show up. It was an eye opener for me. I've kind of evolved on this, and I'm certainly not saying players don't need to get paid. I don't want people to get that twisted. But I think all of this, that's where it's so structured to be, it's just it's hard to coach, I think, and it's hard to have a team. It's not an individual sport; it's a team sport. But when you have individuals making individual decisions, it's going to affect your team's play. I mean, Indiana doesn't have a bunch of 5-stars. They do a great job evaluating, and this year they have future NFL players for sure. But it's the way they play and the way the game is played. This game in football is not meant to be played when you feel like it, And the NFL sorts all those guys out. In the NFL, if you ever turn on a game with two teams not going to playoffs late in the year, they're out there playing their butts off. Well, the reason is contracts aren't guaranteed, and what you put on film is probably going to determine your next gig. So there's motivation. What the college players? I mean, if things don't work out, if they have a bad game, and they can just get in the portal and many times go get more money. And I'm not talking about Carolina. I'm talking about in general. When you watch the way those kids played last night, versus that's the college football I love and remember. And it's just been a little off the last couple of years, and it's getting more off. And so that's just something that until all this kind of gets under control. And again, I'm not trying to limit anybody from anything. I'm just saying that, with the way the rules are set up now, how do you expect young people that are, wealthy that, can just walk out the door whenever and not have to face adversity to be able to play this sport at a high level? So, Indiana's found the magic, and we'll see how they do moving forward. But a few other teams have. But it was eye-opening to me to watch Illinois State, Montana State battle it out last night. That's the college football I remember.
You pulling for anybody in particular in this college football playoff? Because I feel like I'm more intrigued with new blood there's a part of me that's pulling for Mississippi. Surprisingly, there's a part of me that kind of likes what I'm seeing from Miami. I like Oregon. I like Indiana. So I'm all for it. I'm really into this college football playoff more so than I was last year.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I'm going to just be a homer and look at it from a Gamecock perspective. The best thing for South Carolina is for an Indiana-Ole Miss title game. One of those two teams wins it. If you look at the history of both programs, Indiana, we always talk about team program job. It's the worst job in the Big Ten. There's 17 programs in the Big Ten. You're in a state with no talent. You're the third most popular football program in the state most years. Purdue's terrible now, but they haven't always been terrible. Drew Brees played there. Jim Everett played there. They've been good. Joe Tiller had a good run, went to the Rose Bowl. Indiana's just been, the height of their program was probably in the 80s when they beat Carolina in the Liberty Bowl. And so that's the worst job there. So you were talking about being hopeless and things like that. Indiana gives you hope. Ole Miss's history in the SEC is very similar. The only difference is Carolina's been to an SEC championship game and Ole Miss hasn't. They haven't been really good since the 60s. Now, Hugh Freeze had some really good teams there. We know what happened there. And Lane Kiffin, obviously, they've been really good for a period of time. And now they're sustaining it even without Kiffin. But as far as the raw setup that you have, which is what determines success most of the time in college football, Ole Miss is very similar to South Carolina. Probably South Carolina's better in a lot of areas. So they've just had a plan and executed it and at a high level for the last few years and built to this. And, Indiana's obviously has been lightning crashing. But I think for South Carolina fans, even though Oregon has not won one, they built their program over 17, 18 years with Bellotti and Rich Brooks. They've been good for a while. And Miami speaks for itself. I think one of those two teams would be better.
He's J.C. Shurburtt joining us this afternoon. Real quick, some breaking news. We're going to get more into the transfer portal coming up in the next segment, but we'll kind of start with this. South Carolina has now landed Jordan Thomas, a 6'6", 310-pound defensive tackle from the University of Georgia. 3 years of eligibility left. I've said that defensive tackle, J.C., combining somebody with Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, one of the top priorities in this class. And Jordan Thomas is a guy that was a four-star prospect coming out of Don Bosco Prep in New Jersey. Your thoughts on adding another large piece to the defensive tackle room for South Carolina?
Yeah, they loved him out of high school, but and he's got the athletic ability and upside, but he's going to have to develop some, I think, especially to beat out a guy like Troy Pikes, who I think really looked good at the end of the year. But you want to rotate on the defensive line. You've got a good defensive line coach that will either get the most out of him or will not, or probably going to be here for long. Love the way Travian Robertson coaches, and certainly glad he's going to be back in the saddle. But, Carolina went down the road with him for a while in high school. I think he's got some family in Columbia, if I'm not mistaken. He's from New Jersey originally. But, yeah, that was a pretty good pickup. And, it's just a matter of getting the most out of him. I think based on the feedback that I got from my good folks in Athens on how he did since he's been there. So it's one where, this is kind of I would say a reclamation project. Now he's young, and a lot of people forget nowadays football players get better. They develop. Sometimes they're not in the situation that's good for them, and they get another situation and thrive. Gabe Brownlow-Dindy did not play a whole lot until he got to Carolina, and lo and behold, he's pretty good, So Monkel Goodwine's an example of that. So there's a track record there of Carolina taking some of these guys where it may not have worked out that were highly rated and getting the most out of them, and that's what's going to happen for him to impact the Gamecocks in 2026. Real
quick, and then we're going to probably hit a break, but your thoughts as we kind of assess multiple situations here. The not having Travian Robertson on the field this year or on the practice field to develop some of those guys, how big of a blow was that? Because I think that is something that we don't talk enough about, and being able to develop Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy and something. Nothing against Jordan Dove and what they were doing, but Travian Robertson is turning into one of the better defensive line coaches, I think, in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, I'll say it like this. I thought Jordan Dove and Jameel Walker did a fantastic job.
Okay.
Because you look at those guys like Nick Barrett, Monkel Goodwin, both played their best ball. I mentioned Brownlow Dendy. Brownlow Dendy had some nagging injuries. And then Troy Pikes really came on at the end. I didn't think defensive tackle was a big problem. That said, Bill, you're absolutely right. It's one of those things with Travian. You either have Travian coaching or you don't. So you're always going to miss him no matter what. I don't care if, Bill Parcells reincarnated. I don't remember if Bill Parcells coached D-line or not, but he'd probably be good at it. I don't care who's out there coaching. You're always going to miss Travian. And so you're right about that. And, Travian's a guy, too, that's always just good to have on your sidelines. He's a winner. He's got a high set of standards as it relates to the program. And, so certainly I don't think you're wrong. I just didn't, I wanted to make sure that, I recognize the job the other guys did.
No, I'm with you. They did a good job, but I really like – look, I like Sterling Lucas, and I thought he did a good job. I like Deion Barnes, and maybe even Deion Barnes better. We'll find out. But I liked what South Carolina's had, what Shane Beamer's had with his defensive line coaches the last few years, and I'm a big Travian Robertson fan. You are right. Troy Pikes really kind of came on at the end of the year. If they can develop Jordan Thomas, Brownlow Dendy, you've got those freshmen coming in, and Aiden Harris and Noah Clark, Caleb Williams from last year. There's a nice foundation there for South Carolina to really build something on the defensive line that they haven't had for several. They had 2 years ago, but haven't had for several years.
Yeah, he's got to keep one of those things where they had an O for in a class like 2022, signed 4 D tackles, none of them worked out. That happens sometimes. That's why the portal is a good thing. And so they've had to kind of portal it up. And then, the state, outside of Amari Adams, they hadn't really been deep at D tackle, and so that kind of impacts things. But, getting Caleb Williams and Christian Ingram in the last class, and then you got Noah Clark and Aiden Harris coming in, I think that it's starting to kind of turn. The kid at South Point for 2027 is going to be a big-time target, so at D tackle. So, yeah, it's turning around, and you're right. And I do love the coaching. I think those guys get the most out of their room. Travian, and especially since Travian took over, you look at the improvement.
So, hey, let's hit a break real quick and come back, and we'll talk more about this and some of the other guys there as well. He's J.C. Shurburtt. I'm Bill Gunner. It is the Halftime Show. It is 2:35 as we roll along. JC Shurburtt hanging out with us. We tried to decipher some of this transfer portal. Within the hour, South Carolina's picked up a commitment from 6'6", 315-pound Jordan Thomas, a defensive tackle out of the University of Georgia, originally from St. John's Bosco, I believe is how I say it, up in New Jersey. Was the number 14 defensive tackle in the country 2 years ago. And, JC, you were kind of finishing that comment about defensive line, and you know, you and I have had this comment, these conversations a long time ago. You had them with Ryan Bartow. The SEC, you got to have defensive linemen, and you got to have agile guys. And 2 years ago, during 9-4, South Carolina had that. And this year, they weren't bad there, but they didn't have that. You got to continue to build the defensive and the offensive lines.
Yeah, you got to have depth and things like that, and athletic guys and big-bodied guys. And, you know, what I like about let's throw Jordan Thomas in there since he's a similar body type. Caleb Williams and Jordan and Christian Ingram, you know, all those guys, and really Noah Clark too. Though he's a little bit larger, like 25 pounds bigger out of high school. Is that they're these tall 6'5", 6'6", longer guys. Long arm dudes, and if they can get leverage, I mean, sometimes on defensive line, yeah, you got a 6'3", 300-pound guy that's just a freak. You know, that's fine too because they can get leverage. But that's kind of how you draw them up. So I like those body types as far as what they're stacking and you know, the athleticism there. It's a matter of developing them and you know, all that good stuff. And like I said, Travian Robertson's got a track record of doing that since he was at Georgia State and Tulane, and certainly done it at South Carolina. So if you could give him the raw tools or the raw tools with a player, you know, chances are it's going to be successful.
Yeah, and then not only that, you got to develop, and then you got to hold on to them. You got to keep them in your program,
yeah.
and that's a big
challenging,
thing.
Right?
And that brings me to the offensive line. Look, and JC, part of this is very simple. If a player walks into Shane Beamer's office and says, I want this amount of money, Shane Beamer then's got to make a decision. Are you worth it? You know, are you worth it? And I don't know exactly what happened with the offensive line, but I would have loved to have kept Trevon Ball, Josiah Thompson, and Tree Babalade. But there is a process of weighing how much are they worth, how much do they want, and what can we go out and get, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and that group did not have a good year. A lot of those guys came, I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them came to play for Lonnie Teasley. He's gone now. Tree's going to go play for him again out at Nebraska. But and I'm not surprised that this happened. I'm not surprised that the number and certain guys like Josiah leaving slightly. But, you know, that part of this program has to get fixed. And it's never just coaching, and it's never one thing or the other, especially at that spot where you got to get five guys working together and doing assignments and stuff like that. You know, quarterback, I saw something on X about Sellers with Dowell Loggins and Mike Furry as the coordinator and his production versus, you know, Mike Shula, and those numbers are staggering. And so I think there's some truth there. But with offensive line, this just has to get fixed. And, you know, there were some things about that group as a whole this year that just, you know, did not align with the rest of the team, so to speak, you know, at the different other positions. So, you know, sometimes you got to kind of touch bottom to get back to the top. I think, you know, they're sitting right now with 10. I think 15 to 17 is the ideal number in the program as far as scholarship guys go. And I think that they're on their way to filling that out. Obviously, you need tackles, guards. You need a center, a really good center, hopefully. And we'll see what happens. But, you know, you got to look at this as an opportunity to upgrade and to fix this spot. Because I tell you, as good as Kendall Brow's offense is and as excited as I think all the skill guys are, and, you know, I think as relieved and excited people will be around Columbia as to, you know, run an offense that kind of is fast-paced and exciting, aggressive, creative, and fun. It's not going to go very far if you can't block. I mean, think about the Super Bowl last year. The Chiefs obviously have had a pretty tough offense to stop through the years. Well, how did the Eagles stop them? They dominated the line of scrimmage. And in this league, in the SEC, and Clemson normally has a really good D-line as well, that's it doesn't matter what you're running. If you are getting dominated up front, it's the kryptonite to any scheme. And South Carolina's done that to other teams when they've been good on the D-line. So you got to get that fixed. You got to at least be competitive up front. I don't know that they were in many games last year as far as just, going out there and giving it a go and winning your share, which I think is realistic. So, why not? It's a new day on offense. Why not try to use this as an opportunity to get better? And in this day and age in college football, a lot of times you can do that through the transfer portal.
Your take kind of quickly on Jaylen Brown, his departure outlook. I mean, again, this is a kid who never played for you. He suffered a knee injury, but he had high upside. And I think this is just part of the portal to these. What's your take on that from earlier today?
Well, yeah, and it happened while I was on my show, so I haven't got any details on him just yet as far as, like, what caused this. But, he wasn't healthy. My understanding was he was trending towards being fine. I mean, when he got here, he probably – I don't know that he would have started, but would have split time. Yeah, he's a different kind of edge, 265 pounds, a bigger guy. And I think Carolina needed that. Missed it this past year as far as setting the edge against the run. But I hate to say I don't have a lot of details as to why. He's from Alabama originally. Maybe, there's some Auburn going there or something. Maybe, the health thing was I don't know. I don't want to speculate beyond that. But, as far as just using your imagination, which is what it is because he never played, and you kind of trying to see, who's going to play, who can help. That was one that was not pleasant, as far as just the, projection goes. Now, what's the reality? I don't know. But the projection, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to lose that one, and we'll see if they're able to kind of regroup. And again, what else can you get in the portal, or how much was he asking? Who knows? And you kind of mentioned it. There's a lot of crazy things that kind of happen. Before I let you out of here, real quick, about 2 minutes, I'll just kind of recap because I know you're covering it all now. But basketball tonight against LSU, and I've called it. This is going to be the year of Jeremiah Donati, following the basketball program and decisions he may have to make. Paul Maneri in baseball. But your thought on where this basketball program is now as we go into Game 2 of SEC play?
Yeah, it's tough because this is a team that I've never really seen a team that is supposed to be good at shooting the threes that cannot shoot threes. And, there's some guys that I think are not fundamentally sound and getting set when they're jacking them up. There's some guys that are open, that are taking good shots, that just aren't hitting them. And then there's the defensive issues. So, one of these nights, the shots are going to fall for them, and they'll probably beat some teams. But until that's more consistent, you don't have a lot of hope. Vanderbilt, did just about everything they wanted to do on offense at the CLA on Saturday. And Carolina at one point was 5 for 25 from three-point land. And, until that gets better, you just don't have a lot of hope. It's a long season, and they can get hot, but I feel bad for Lamont Paris because I know the expectation versus what he's gotten this year has been there's a big gap there. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, they're going, but I mean, the name of the game is winning now. And,
yeah, it's the bottom line. I can feel bad, but it is. I'll admit freely, it's a bottom line business.
Yeah,
you win or it's on to something else.
JC, we always appreciate it, buddy. I know I'll be in touch with you more. We got some other stuff. You and I got some stuff planned. We look forward to that. So enjoy your day, and we'll look forward to catching up with you here again in the near future.
See you later, Bill. Be good, man.
Take care. JC Shurburtt joining us this afternoon for some transfer portal talk and a little basketball there at the very end. We'll come back and wrap everything up. It's the Halftime Show. We're wrapping it up on a Tuesday. Hopefully we'll have Tyler back tomorrow, get his voice back, and he can participate, and we will continue to watch the transfer portal. If you're just tuning in, getting set for Jay and Terry coming up in a few minutes. Gamecocks landing Jordan Thomas, 6'6", 310-pound defensive lineman in the transfer portal, commits after 2 years at Georgia. And as JC was kind of talking about, raw player, but a guy that you want to add to your roster. And, can he develop? Can Travian Robertson get the most out of him? That's going to be the thing to watch there, is you get these kids on campus, especially some of these kids that come from Alabama, Georgia. You know they're talented. You know they've got potential. You got to develop it. And, Jordan Thomas may end up being a bust. He may end up being nothing. But I'd rather have him on my team with the potential that he has and hope that my coaches can coach him up. So that's kind of the big news today. Gamecocks did lose Jalen Brown. Very similar. A guy with potential. Did have the knee injury, but a guy with potential, and I would have preferred to have him on my roster to work with and develop and to see what he could become than to not. So it's a loss. It's a loss. I can't say that for everybody. You can't. There are guys that leave, and you're like, okay, thank you. Thank you for all you've done. We're happy to see you leave. But, Jalen Brown, one of those guys. Vandravius Jacobs, maybe another one. I'm not thrilled about losing. I'm not thrilled about losing Trevon Ball, Big Tree Babalade, or Josiah Thompson for those. And also the news today, Big Tree officially committing to Nebraska. So, hey, good. Go be with Lonnie Teasley. If that's what you want to do, if that's how you like to be coached, if that's everything you need, good luck, young man. Best of wishes to you. 803-404-6100. College football on Thursday, Friday. NFL playoffs this weekend. I'm not a Panthers fan. I've never been a Panthers fan, and I'm not about to start pulling for the Panthers now. However, I'm happy to see them in the playoffs. Like, it genuinely warms my heart to look at the Saturday schedule and see the Panthers hosting a playoff game. And, we're going to tell you later, a great event going on for Steve Tannehill this week, Celebration of Life. I need to get to that this week. You can go check out my Twitter or Jamie Bradford's Twitter, Sports Media JB, to learn more about it. Going on downtown. A lot of great Gamecocks will be down there this coming Saturday starting at 4 o'clock. And that's where I'll take in this Rams-Panthers game at 4:30. Now, Rams are favored by 10. Panthers aren't all that good. I mean, let's be honest. They aren't all that good. But they're better than they have been, and it makes it more intriguing. And it makes me happy to, look and see them in the NFL playoffs. And I think these NFL playoffs are really going to be fun, especially this wild card round coming up this weekend. You get the Rams and the Panthers, and, hey, again, the Rams might beat them by 3 touchdowns. Probably will. But it's fun to see the Panthers actually going somewhere, actually building something. And they've got to continue to do it. But you're seeing Bryce Young improve.